Humility, the quality of not thinking that you are better than other people, is, in my view, the best achieving value. Let little children come. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. When we hear through verses like these, Jesus asking us not to put ourselves first, or our adult behaviour first, some may ask me, well, what has this got to do with achieving, Jack? Doesn't achieving mean working on something? Isn't this speech in a context of a sermon on Sunday when all work is put aside? Well, I think you'll find that humility is a value we can all use a bit of, especially when it comes to workplaces. 1. Even the best people are not perfect. That's God. 2. Humility is a reality check. 3. If you are somehow humble, that separates you from the rest of the best. So, part 1. Even the best people are not perfect. That's God. The rock, his work is perfect, and all his ways are just. Deuteronomy 32, verse 4. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1v1. God, as the creator of everything, is the only being we should call perfect. We are created by God if we look at Genesis 2. We also realize, based on Genesis 3, we as humans descend from those deceived by the serpent. A very hard truth to contain from all this is that we descended from sinners, and that we ourselves have sinned. It's a hard truth because there are certain tough nuts in the world, people with clout, fame, or leadership status who lord it over others. Those are the kind of people who deny their personal sinning. The devotional book that turned me into a Christian has a story on the self-exalted. She, the Sunday school teacher, used some Bible verses to show that everybody has sinned, said David. But Jordan doesn't believe that. He says he's not so bad. This was written for school children to read, and this was based on a school kid telling all the kids that our Sunday school teacher was goofy. We see here, just because it is a school, people act tough and competitive, students being afraid of being bullied over weaknesses, in which case they build a cult of unbreakable sentiment in the case of this particular story. People like Jordan, they don't want to feel the shame if they were to be exposed. Yet admitting our human sin is not merely shameful, it should bring us back to a perfect God who can sustain us. And this brings me on to point 2, that humility isn't just to do with shame, it's a reality check. When you run away from criticism or even solve those problems, it's easy to look at life from a negative angle. We can look wider though, just like if we were to think about David. As 1 Samuel 22 says, David left there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. Everyone who was in distress and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him. This was a sermon at my church today, looking at David being a political fugitive, hiding in a cave. People interested as well. That's the negative view. Now let's bring in 2 Samuel 2 verse 4. So all the elders of Israel came to the king of Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed King David over Israel. Look at that, a political outlaw to the king of Israel. How? But David relied on God. That's what he did. He recognized his own trouble and relied on God, and God made him king. That's what humility does. It helps you see that the world is not all about being the most affluent or being the ruler. It's about being real. Remember how God was perfect according to Deuteronomy? Well, that verse also said, all his ways are just. Give God a reality check and he is perfect. It's a fact of life that we can be never anywhere near as best as we can be unless we are honest and therefore humble about ourselves. 3. If you are somehow humble, that separates you from the rest of the rest of the best. The rest of the best? What does that mean? There appear to be two types of best: unsavory best and benevolent best. There are people like King Saul, Putin, Kim Jong Un, people who have a lot of power and resources, but people who don't like that about those people. They don't like it because they are exploitative. They use their influence against others sometimes. That is what I would call unsavory best. But there are also people like David, Nelson Mandela, Joe Biden, people who have these resources, just like dictators, but who show respect for others in the world. I just happened to mention monotheists from a Judeo-Christian worldview. I mean, they also respect God in that case. That's benevolent best. Which person would you rather be? I mean, how can you be among the benevolent best? Through humility, not insecurity, admitting times when things go wrong. David was a fugitive. Mandela was imprisoned due to racist apartheid rule in South Africa. Joe Biden needed to take the presidency from an impeached racist homophobe. What about the sins? David admitted to sleeping with another man's wife. Mandela, let's just skip him. What about Biden, though? Has he done any sins? Gaffes and Middle Eastern double standards. Look, in conclusion, humility is the best value because it means we can see the world in reality. It helps us to come closer to God, to respect others, but also to succeed, because we can only succeed when we recognise when we have gone wrong. We don't go to shame as much as we go to refuge. We get lifted up because we don't simply exploit or judge, we also listen and repent. And that is the gift of humility. Any questions?